In history there were many royal scandals, but none of them had as scandalous a drama of the royal family as Katarzyna from the Braganza. As the Queen of England, Carol II, Katarzyna now has the opinion of the patient young lady who had to look at what husband is against and has unacclaimed love. But most people do not know that the Queen Katarzyna had the same strong personality as her husband, and that she left a lasting legacy. When Carol II was lying on the bed of death, he called his wife Katarzyna from the Braganza. Her answer was absolutely heart-wrenching. She was unable to think about the death of her husband. That is why she asked to stay away from him, but she added that she would like to, quoting, "premise him if she had imagined him throughout his life." Carol's answer was somehow even more Juzava. Katarzyna from Braganza was born in 1638 as a daughter of Jana, the Prince of the Braganza, and his wife Luisa de Guzman. 2 years later, after the end of the war on the restoration of Portugal, her father was suddenly named the King of Portugal. This changed Katarzyna's life forever, because she became a queen's sign. Although Katarzyna was now one of the richest and most privileged women in Portugal, it did not mean that her life was easy. Her mother, Queen Luisa, was a guardian, and a very guardian of the daughter. She kept Katarzyna in the shelter in a nearby monastery to learn. Because of this unusual development, Katarzyna ended up as a rather naive girl with some innocence in the matter of the life of the court, which later made her move to the English court even more difficult. When she achieved the full age, many royal knights throughout Europe were interested in her. What's strange, the famous French king Ludwig XIV was interested in young Katarzyna. However, her mother had other plans for her and chose the King of Carola II, the English king, as her future husband. Mary was not born out of love, but out of political integrity. Carol wanted to secure a strong alliance with Portugal, and the great owner of Katarzyna, who occupied the valuable Portuguese territory of Bombay and Tanghuru, was a great encouragement. Although Katarzyna and Carol never met, they decided to take over and settle in 1661. The Princess Katarzyna was going to be the future Queen of England. In 1662, the 23-year-old Katarzyna managed to go to Portugal in England to meet with her fiancé for the first time. Their first meeting was not as impressive as it was imagined in the palace. Carol, showing the evil spirit of lack of enthusiasm for his new wife, saw her there only almost a week later, only 1 day before their wedding. On May 20th, 1662, Katarzyna and Carol gathered in Portsmouth during the royal ceremony. They had one more secret wedding. One of the conditions of the marriage was that the late Katarzyna would remain a Catholic despite the wedding of the Protestant king. This legal law was something Carol did not want to make a special announcement. Although Katarzyna was now a Queen of England, just like the English weather, it was not so pink and colorful. At that time, she was only speaking English and had problems with understanding when she was not in the Portuguese world. It did not help that many English people hated her simply because she was a Catholic in a country where Protestants dominated. Despite that, she was one person who liked her. Mother Carola, Henrietta Maria, was delighted with her new son, calling her, quote, "the best creation in the world and holy." However, even this support could not protect her from the brutal reality of her husband's behavior. Although Carol was supposed to be the knightly King of England, he had a very scandalous past. However, Katarzyna soon found out that her husband was known throughout Europe from her long love letter. What's more, she was not used to often turning around with many different women. She often got pregnant, although Mother Carola believed that she could have a happy married life. In just a few weeks, Carol returned to her normal infatuation. Katarzyna was shocked when she heard about it. Among many lovers, Carola, his favorite woman, was the woman named Barbara Villiers. Her influence on the court was so great that people called her even the uncoronated queen. She was more and more obsessed with Carola's power in the bedroom and outside. So when Katarzyna entered the court, she developed her rivalry. When Katarzyna arrived in England, Barbara was already in the advanced train with one of many unmarried children of the Queen Carola. To imagine the Queen Katarzyna when she was in the honeymoon month, Barbara was supposed to have a son born in the palace of the personal Queen Carola in Hampton Court. Carol was very pleased with the news that she had a boy, and he rewarded his lover, making her a lady of her wife, the Queen Katarzyna. Regardless of whether he was a womanizer, a man, or just a womanizer, when he made the decision, it was a bad decision, because both women were angry with each other. Katarzyna now had to see a woman who was sleeping with her husband every day. It was very damaging to their marriage. After so many defeats, Katarzyna was tired of playing a nice role as an obedient wife. She began a full-scale relationship with Barbara and refused to spend more time with the Queen until he again disrespected her unappreciated proposal. It became known as the so-called sleep crisis. Katarzyna was understandably angry and threatened to return to Portugal if she had to accept her husband's love. In Carol's response, he took a regular Portuguese wedding photo of Katarzyna and basically forced her to go to Barbary. Katarzyna was now very lonely in the surrounding country and unhappy in the presence of Barbara. As the age of Katarzyna's influence, she tried to give birth to a baby many times. She went on to do it 3 times, and unfortunately, she was lost for the first time. People began to wonder if their new queen would ever give birth to the next monarch of England. In 1663, Katarzyna's situation became very difficult when she was seriously ill. What's worse, instead of spending time with her sick bed, her husband went and gave in to another romance, this time with the beautiful queen of the palace named Frances Stuart. While Katarzyna was spending her day in the bed, people began to talk without a soul that Carol was so loved by Frances, and that she would be ready to stay as a queen. When only Katarzyna's sick, Katarzyna was so sick that she even started to faint at some point. She was hallucinating that the child she lost by the funeral was alive, and that she was born. This feeling of sensitivity seemed to touch Carol's heart, and comforted her in the only known way. He continued to be upset, and said that her children are now 2 plants of her son and 1 beautiful daughter. Regardless of whether Katarzyna's words helped her, she finally managed to survive and heal. Although she would have remained a childless, she left this dark period with a new determination to make her own self as a queen. During the 3 years of Katarzyna's marriage and Carol, during which Katarzyna tried and failed to have a child, Carol went ahead and had 3 unmarried children with his beloved Barbara. Together with these new events, it seemed that the Katarzyna's power was getting more and more violent at the door. Because the influence of Barbara became stronger and stronger, people began to whisper and whisper. Katarzyna did not give up on the king of Carol II. The king's advice was to invite him to divorce Katarzyna and find her more powerful, and maybe even a protest wife. However, despite these fears, Carol's response was surprising. Carol the courtier refused to listen to his ministers, and although he had many romances, he did not divorce his wife. Carol assured that his courier and lover showed Katarzyna respect. He also supported Katarzyna and accepted her point of view during the meeting between his queen and other people at his court. Although the fact that the romance between Frances Stuart and Carol was thoughtfully arranged did not upset Katarzyna, it made Barbara angry. Barbara often denerved and fell into hysteria. For this reason, the king soon bored her and lost her position at the court, even though Frances was still there. The fact that Barbara disappeared from the court made Katarzyna very happy and much more confident about herself as a queen. Now that Katarzyna regained her rhythm, she began to be more happy about the great dissatisfaction of the raw protesters. One of her most scandalous episodes was the kushokowie, playing cards on Sunday. She even began to dress more stylishly, wearing fashionable clothes that exposed her pretty, cold legs and bones. In addition to her more sensual and fun side, Katarzyna also had great love for money. Although she could often give them a boon, she still loved to collect and increase the large wealth. In contrast to many royal women of this period, Katarzyna had a significant autonomy in terms of her finances. Around 1670, Carol received a new love, the French one named Louis d'Arroy. During Katarzyna's time, she often fought with previous lovers. This time she was a great match with Ludwig. In contrast to Barbara, who was often ungrateful, Ludwika was much more considerate and different in terms of her royal status. It was good, because in the 1970s, Katarzyna had to become a very difficult period. Meanwhile, the anti-Attalist moods were growing in England. A new list called Papieski Spisk claimed that there was a Catholic list aimed at murdering King Carol II. Although it was not proven, it led to mass hysteria throughout the country. Because Katarzyna was the highest rank of Catholic in the country, people began to suspect her of committing crime. The English Parliament began to press King Carol again to develop with her wife, in case she had something in common with the list of the opponents. However, Carol did not even manage to convince their claim. He became angry and supported her against the senseless claim. He even quotes his words, "She could never do anything wrong, and it would be a great thing to throw her away." It was an amazing support for one of the rare moments of real loyalty in their marriage. Despite the fact that many women were married, Carol was a respected woman for the integrity of Katarzyna. This is why relations between the king and the queen were very warm. The relationship between the two witnesses noted that the royal couple became more friendly in public places. People at the court also noticed that Carol visited the room of Katarzyna at night much more often than before, and for a longer time. Despite the difficulty in her marriage with other lovers and anti-Atoll drama, Katarzyna's royal affairs improved tremendously. One of the biggest influences of Katarzyna in England was the popularization of drinking tea. Although tea was already in England, Katarzyna was her drunkard, and made her drink tea fashionable among aristocracy. In the late years, the marriage of the King Carol and the Queen Katarzyna finally stabilized in something that resembled love. However, in 1685, Carol was sick of what was supposed to be her last disease. As a God-given Catholic, Katarzyna spent many days by her side, dying of her Protestant soul. When the King Carol died, he sent his wife to be by her bed. Her answer was a heart-wrenching heart. Maybe she couldn't bear the sight of the dying husband. She refused and asked to stay away from him. She also added that she wanted to apologize to him if she had offended him for the rest of her life. When Carol heard this, her answer was even sadder. She wasn't angry. She was shocked that the Queen Katarzyna said something like that, and said that he had to apologize for it. She asked to be told that she herself asked her to forgive her heart. Her request for forgiveness, despite the years of mourning, was a rare moment of regret. It was a serious end of the marriage, both a public scandal and a private resistance. Before the King Carol died, he could go to the Catholic Church. Finally, the priest went to the room and gave him a Catholic church, although it is not clear how much it was known that at that time the possibility of Carol's return to the Catholic Church on the deathbed was a sweet moment for Katarzyna. Although it was her faith that also emphasized tragic religious periods that caused so many conflicts in their marriage. Although Katarzyna from Braganza spent most of her life with her husband, she did not forget him. In 1692, she returned to Portugal and became a legend of her brother, Piotr II. After a few years spent in the Portugal courts, Katarzyna died in December 1705 at the age of 67. Katarzyna's life with Braganza and her husband with the King Carol II was both good and bad. Among the violent religious struggles of the 17th century, Despite the challenges associated with the cruelty of the king and the anti-Atalic moods, Katarzyna was resisted by the whole time, unbreakable in faith, and left a lasting mark on herself. Perhaps you will remember her next time you will be a delictor of a cup of afternoon tea. Thank you for watching History Exposed. If you like to discover the best stories in history, click on it, like it, and subscribe to continue discovering with us. Don't forget to visit our main page, Factate, to learn more about the amazing facts.